Buddy, welcome to a Friday stream. We are still in countdown mode to when we'll get our next Logic Pro update. I was hoping this week, maybe next week, maybe August, maybe 2026. Who knows? However, we do have the trail of clues we always seem to get with previous updates. And one of those biggest clues that we have right now, of course, would be Logic Pro for iPad, because it has features and things that the main desktop version of Logic doesn't have. And so in the past, what we've seen are features coming from, for instance, GarageBand. And they would come from GarageBand into the main version of Logic after they'd been out in use for some period of time. Now, there's a couple differences with things. One of them is the main version of Logic, at least according to the App Store, is something that it sends no usage information back to Apple. Whether we believe that or not, I don't know. But the iPad version doesn't have that caveat, and so they are tracking what people are doing on the iPad version, and they're seeing what gets used and what doesn't. And, we all get to decide ourselves if there's features of the iPad version that we like. I've had a hard time really getting into the iPad version. And it's not because it doesn't have all of the features. I mean, it's fairly similar in the feature set to the main version of Logic. However, we could make a list of things that we're missing, right? There are certainly some things that we're missing in the iPad version. We don't have a score editor. We don't have an environment. A lot of the Flex editing tools aren't really there. What else? I mean, tell me the things that you're missing in that version. I'd love to hear, but there's a lot. Third-party plugins, even though I don't imagine it would be that hard. It's my simplistic view of the world, because the audio unit format is similar to the audio unit on the iPad. They're related. It's like I wonder what effort it would take to make some of those plugins compatible on the iPad. We already see iPad apps. Most of them are compatible with OS on your Mac. However, people often turn those off. They don't want you to use them on both. They want to be able to charge you for the iPad version and for the Mac version. Cool, whatever. But we don't have a lot of third-party plugins on the iPad format right now. We just don't. So today what we're going to look at are some of the things on the iPad version that we wish we could have in the Mac version. High frequency music. How's it going in Bombay, India? Dr. Voodoo, how are you doing? I thought it was coming this week, and here we are not having it. I remember this kind of happened last year around this time, where Final Cut came out with an update like a month before Logic, and then I started counting down, and then they released like one of the OS updates, which they just did within the past week or so. And then I was thinking, okay, then Logic will be right after it, and then it was like a week later. It's like they probably found some additional bugs, or someone's, trying to get some last minute coding done. I still think we're going to get something. It could be a small thing that's just a bug repair job. I think we're going to get something still before the developers conference in June. That's my guess. Now, we don't know. Somebody knows. And I can only guess based on what I've heard from people and from what I've seen in the past. We can only conjecture, and so we'll keep on guessing and talking. But here's what I do think is going to happen it's likely that some of the things that are in the iPad version are going to come over to the Mac version. That's because, in my opinion, the iPad version is the future Logic full version. It makes sense. Why would they want to keep on making two parallel software offerings when eventually they could really have one unified look and feel? And when they made plugin changes or interface changes, they were just making it for different screen sizes rather than for two completely different pieces of software. Okay, so let's talk. I am curious. There's a few of you watching now. First of all, have you used the iPad version? That's a big starter question. Have you actually used the iPad version? I'd be interested to know. And then, for those of you who have, or at least know a little bit about it, what would you want to come from the iPad version over to the Mac version? One of those for me would be the tiles. I do like the tiles. These are the things at the bottom of the screen right here. This is a live screen behind me, by the way. It's actually a little tricky to be able to live stream with an iPad screen running Logic and have audio and video from it. It was a little bit of an exercise of figuring out the best way this morning, but it is fully functional. I'll push play and let you hear. On a rainy day in the middle of... So that's an old song that I've worked on in the past. It's not a huge one. I do want to do some tests this week where I see how much I can actually push the iPad version. I know there have been people who've run into performance ceilings on certain versions of this. This is an M1 iPad Pro. And so we've had more versions of iPads come out since this one, but it's still one of the iPad Pros with the M chip. It's just the earliest one. And it's a powerful little iPad. But I've really figured out which things I like. For instance, again, the tiles. The tiles have proven very useful. They've been useful because of the limited screen size. And the screen size is one of the biggest limitations for me. I actually have a setup now. I have a external portable monitor, which I plug into my iPad and use a wireless keyboard and mouse. That way, it actually spreads out the Logic interface. That was one of the things I was most curious about. If you plugged in an external monitor, would it expand out the Logic interface so that it actually fit more on it, or was it clunky? And it's actually really good. And so it's clear that interface is designed to be on a variety of different screen sizes, even ones that we don't have iPads in. And it worked really well. It made it actually far more usable, except it wasn't a touch screen, which of course the iPad being a touch interface is one of the best parts of Logic. So, mouse and a keyboard, great way to interface with Logic on the iPad, but also that touch interface is a great way to interface as well. And then, how's it going, Raymond and Breakspace? Howdy. But let's talk about these tiles for a second, why I actually really like them. And Breakspace is saying one thing that I was about to just say, which is customizable plugin tiles. Right now, we're very much like the smart controls in Logic for Mac, where you can have, you have the little knobs at the bottom and they connect to different things. But those you can assign, makes them very useful. These ones, not so far. But I imagine there'd be a way to do it. So these tiles, one of the things I really love about them are that they do have, generally so far, the most used controls. The compressor. We have a threshold, attack, release. Awesome. And then I could double click on it and it brings up the full version. This interface, which we've seen a lot of with the iPad version, is okay. We tend to have a lot of space And these knobs that are like two different sizes or just kind of different sizes. And you have to really be careful which one you're touching. There's not a lot of visual information except for the words and the data. But one of the things I actually like about a lot of Logic's interface is that in the past, they've built in a lot of visual cues for what you're touching. And so you get used to just really quickly glancing. You can see what knob you're touching. In this one, you definitely have to be really careful because there's, 5 knobs, one of them slightly bigger, and the other one's all the exact same. You don't just want to grab one. You got to be careful. So we can move the threshold up and down. Perfect. And then just click the arrow and go right back to there. That's fine. Without having to go to the mixer, I can click and hold on that compressor and change the place with the channel EQ. And so I actually have some mixer type tasks that I can accomplish without having to go to the mixer. And I can add an audio effects. And we have all of our default ones plus the third-party ones in here. And so we could easily come through and say, you know what? I want this or I want that. And you can add them on without having to go to the mixer. Adding plugins in the mixer is difficult or more difficult. It's not impossible, but I don't just get to come in here and click in any of those spaces. Because right now it's in like move the interface with your finger mode, and you have to like switch the mode to the setup and then click on the plus and then choose. I mean, that's fine. That takes up a lot of space on the screen. But with the tiles, I can just do it. So the tiles are where I add effects, where I move effects. And when I go in to edit the effects a little deeper, and you can even change which one you have open. That for me, this in some ways is one of the biggest changes, I think, maybe not this exact iteration, but one of the biggest changes audio in general is ready to take. And I don't know if anyone's brave enough to take it. The mixer, this is built off of, big consoles that we have in the studio, right? And in the studio, we have these faders, analog or digital consoles, and that format has been around for a while. Before we had the faders that slid up and down, actually early consoles had knobs for volume control. Somebody just figured out the fader and built a bunch of stuff and got incorporated into all the consoles. Is it the only way to do it? Of course not. We still do it in the software only because it makes us feel maybe like we're at a console. This is nothing console-like. Not really. Even if you're on the screen, I can move multiple faders with my fingers. But it's not the only way to do things. And sometimes in this digital world, we sometimes forget that we don't just have to mimic the physical analog or digital console world. We could actually do things differently. And I like this tile thing because it lets me do things a little bit differently, better for this form factor. And I don't have to necessarily always live in like the console world. Although I like the console world. I have, consoles that I use. Great. Plastodon, how's it going? So this is one thing. I think the tiles in particular it's a nice way of working that I wouldn't mind having this carry over to the Logic version for Mac. Now, is it going to? I don't know. Part of this is it would make sense to, as these two versions, which are somewhat compatible, become more unified, right? As they become more unified, things like this will have to happen because if they're in one, kind of should be in the other, although the tiles don't have to be because the tiles are just visual representation of the plugins in the mixer. And so when you move them back and forth, it's doing things that you could do in the mixer. You could keep them separate. It's just visually, I don't have an issue with it. Does it help me in my Mac workflow? I don't know. It's questionable. I don't know because we don't have them. Now we do have the smart controls how many of you use smart controls? I use them for very specific things. But if I'm sitting at my station with Mac Logic Pro, I'm actually using my Nectar half the time for plugins now because it has all these nice physical knobs. I really like those. And the screen and the EQ, all that stuff, it's so much better in that format. I don't know. Smart controls seem like kind of a niche thing for a lot of people. DVM, how's it going? According to our experience, will AI music outperform human music? No. Yes. Maybe. All I know is that it's going to be a while before humans want to go to a concert where AI is the thing performing. Doesn't sound so cool. And AI is still going to need humans at that point to put them on the stage and tell them what to do. So maybe eventually it's like we're already having music made by AI, I'm assuming, in things like, well, they have some rules, but I know somebody's breaking them and using them in like TV stuff or commercials or corporate audio things, video games. I mean, it's going to sneak in everywhere. But I haven't heard any AI music yet where I felt like it was better than something I liked that was made by a human. That's just me. Dr. Voodoo says they use smart controls here and there. See, here and there. On the iPad, I use the tiles all the time because it's too clunky to work with the mixer. The tiles are the best way to work, by far. And then Placidon says, oh, the pet hospital. I hope your pet is okay. That stinks. Pet hospitals. No bueno. Dr. Voodoo says, I like smart controls, actually. I just wish they were a bit more flexible. I want to be able to save them without having to save it as a patch. Yeah. So there's some things about that. There's some implementation that are a little tricky. In fact, here's how I would love to have some sort of AI involved with my logic creation. Ready for this? I would like to have a little console where you can type or talk and say, hey, Logic, can you make me a smart control that encapsulates all of the following parameters from the plugin into a cool interface and use mostly knobs, but use sliders, and give me a XY matrix in the middle so that I can morph between them. See, that sentence right there took me about less than 10 seconds to say. I would love to have an AI tool then implement that as a smart control inside Logic. That's doable. That's something that somebody could actually make a tool that does that. Whether they're going to or not is a different story, but it's possible. And that would, I think, be a really useful thing. Or to say to the program, pull open my template that I use for mixing, except I want you to put all of the tracks that are vocal based into this reverb, and I want you to use this other reverb on the drums and like talk it through a little bit and then have the software implement it. I don't want it to actually mix for me unless there's some tasks that are really remedial that would benefit from it. I just want to be able to have better access to what I'm thinking and what it's doing. And sometimes, the speech or text to idea is a little bit more interesting. You could say, as you're listening to this from your couch, hey, Logic, can you put a higher ratio on that vocal so that it sticks within a certain decibel range? and have it implemented. That would be useful to me, but it still keeps the human listening and creating. Shrenna says, hello, sir. And I say, hello back. Cool. We have a good group on here today. I love that. Okay, so the tiles. We're like already digressing. But the tiles for me are one of those things that I love. And I think it's a smart approach. They made them look good. It's like going through my channels here and it's swapping them between them. And I can like scroll through all my effects and see the major parameters, I would say. Cool. That's awesome. But I wouldn't mind being able to like hold on the compressor and be like, I would like to edit this and change maybe the release to be a mix knob or something for the compressor. It's like I'd like to be able to do some other things with these. Right now, they're great, but they're limiting. But I can always just like say, you know what? Let's just click into there and let's change some parameters of all these parameters. That's a lot of information to look at, but they're good contrast. I just think that the knob format with all the knobs looking exactly the same is a missed opportunity. And it's a lot. You don't have to like my ideas, Breakspace. But I just like the idea of somebody helping or something helping efficiency without taking away the humanity. So some implementation of that would be good. Diviam says tiles are like analog consoles, all the controls in front of the eye for real-time tweaking. Kind of. If you think about the board as having, well, this doesn't have everything though, but I guess I see what you mean. Dr. Voodoo says, as I've said in a previous live stream, all I want for the next Logic for Mac OS update are the plugin tiles and unified browser from Logic for iPad. So let's talk about the browser for a minute, because that is one of the things. In the bottom left-hand corner, let me see if I can see it on the stream or not. Oh, yeah. Part of my stream covered up. In the bottom left-hand corner, we have this little thing where we could add the fader, the one single fader and pan. And that's for the selected channel. Cool. So we don't even have to go into the mixer if we're just doing one channel at a time. That's cool. And then we have our library browser. And this is a huge step in the right direction, which makes me think that we're getting this in the next version of Logic, or at least one of the next versions. Maybe not immediately. In the past, for instance, we got the step sequencer in GarageBand, and then it went into Logic. And we had things like auto sampler that went into main stage first and then into Logic. And we had some of the producer packs that started in GarageBand and went into Logic. Well, now Logic for the iPad is like that relationship with GarageBand where they're putting stuff in there. It's a little less pressure. They don't think people are like making full records on this like in the studio yet, although you could. Why not? But they're putting things in here and they're saying, what do people like from what we just did? And, this is a more useful thing. If we get more sounds, this brings up the sound library with cool images. I don't have everything installed right now. But it's like we could load up, let's do like an instrument patch. I'll just soloed everything. Let's just do quick new instrument, right? And for this, I'm going to click over here in the library. Ooh, okay. but I can click on things and hear them, and there's better filtering, I feel like, and searching for things. And so there's part of that which I think is really useful. Let's see, let's do acoustic. Let me just scroll down. Ooh. But we would have to like actually filter out some of these things. Let's do guitar. Now, I don't have all the library installed, so that's why right now it gives me 2 choices for acoustic guitar, and then it says partial matches are all these electric guitars. That's just because I only have a few things installed. That's fine. Awesome. That being able to like hear something. I don't know why that's a partial match, but that right there is already heads above the Logic for Mac in the actual library browser, right? And so I don't know. That right there, we're getting something in that direction. We have to be. There's no question about it. I don't know when, but eventually we will. Let me go through the comments. Plastodon says, I wonder with the AI issues at Apple if it will delay everything across all Apple apps. The issues they're having with AI at Apple don't have much to do with Apple Intelligence and Logic, I don't think. Just sneezed. Woo. I don't think it does. It may have an issue, but I don't think we're looking at an issue for that. Unless they're like, you know what, beef it up so we can claim that we're doing more in this area, and so they're delaying something. That could be. iPad Logic is great for doing authentic sounding bends. We could talk about that too. However, I actually don't think that that's necessarily a limitation that we have just in the iPad version, because we have the Logic Control app, which allows us to do things. Oh, that's just a single note. Let's find a real guitar for a second. Acoustic guitar. We'll do classical. We could already do some of that with the Logic Remote app. And so we don't need to do that in Logic, but it's one step less. And so we don't necessarily have all the same things in the Remote app. But let's see. Shrenna says they don't want to make any more music. Cool. Plastodon, it does have an Ableton EFX rack look. I agree with that, which is something that's good. Breakspace says, another thing we don't have full Alchemy synth and properly integrated sculpture. That's 1,000% true. And so maybe that'll come out. It's like we're not there yet, but every version, just watch. Every version that comes out is going to be slowly moving the 2 versions closer together, just like they did with all of their productivity apps like Pages and Keynote and stuff. And now those ones are almost identical. And the Mac versions gave up things, and the iPad version got things, but it was a compromise. Dr. Voodoo says, I have an idea for you. Try to use Logic and edit all MIDI and audio regions without ever opening their respective editors. Oh, I don't like that idea. But it's an idea. It could. I mean, yeah. Another thing, a couple of things from Dr. Voodoo. Forces you to use only the inspector or key commands is actually cool because it forces you to avoid having to open and close the piano roll. Yeah, and I don't know about on the iPad version, but on the Mac version, you can edit all your MIDI right on the main window. So you can even do your flex pitch and stuff on the main window without having to open up the editor. Cool. Cool combos in the chat. But this is a perfect example. We don't have this fretboard in Logic for Mac. How would that work? We'd have to have a touch screen, right? And so it makes the most sense to have this in the iPad version or in the Logic Remote version, which we do have something similar. And so that's really useful. But the library, back to the library for a moment, being able to hear things without having to load them, that's a lifesaver for sure. I think we can. So I turned off the instantly import button, and then you can click on it to make it be that's what's loaded. But okay, well, can we make this bigger? I don't think so. Cool. But there's also other features here. We have new track with patch, replace patch, set as default for new, find similar, find dissimilar. So those things right there are things that we don't have on the full version. But we're not just stuck with instrument patches. We have our audio patches, our loops, our samples, our plugin presets, our patterns, and we can do the get more sound. So it's already a step up from what we have in the Mac version. So I'm reading some comments. I love how they've made sample alchemy. Just imagine having sculpture UI in this direction and alchemy itself. Yes. Sculpture has that. At least with the Logic Remote, we can already do the 8 performance pads in Alchemy using that the remote on the iPad or phone. And so you can still get some of it there, but I do agree with you in many ways. Let's actually load up. What do I want? That's not what I wanted. Every once in a while, it's trying to do stuff for me. Let's see. I want to do sculpture. And this will pretty much sum up everything I dislike about the version. Although you'll look here, it has a tile for the morph Y, morph X, inner loss, and stiffness. So those are some of the things that we would want an XY to control with sculpture, right? Load it into a tile. We double click on this. Let's close the piano. This is everything wrong with the iPad version. Hold on, let me rescale. Let me swipe through the whole instrument one more time. There is no way that this is easier to use than the version on Mac. I mean, that is so bad. So horrible. At least on the Mac version, things are like organized into like little graphical containers and things. But I feel like can we even do this? Let's see. Let's change this out. Sculpture. Replace it with alchemy. So we have this now for alchemy. It has the performance area and the other XY and some other basic presets. Let's go back to tiles for a second. So that's the main tile. We open up that into here. And there are other things that we can actually do in here, but it's like a limited thing. And it's not my favorite, for sure. We obviously don't have any of the editors and things like that from Alchemy, which are so powerful. Cool. Placidon says, also wondering if with the new Mac OS update will be needed for the next Logic update. I don't know. So right now we're on, what are we on for Mac right this moment? 15.5. And that's the one that just came out. And it, there wasn't an update for Logic when that came out. And Logic is working fine. It's a small update, but, when 16 comes out, then surely they'll have to have some sort of update. Although they haven't always. There have been major updates to the Mac OS and the iPad OS without having a Logic update. So clearly they're either preparing for that beforehand or they're just not changing the things that it needs. Well, I'm going to have to head out here in a minute. This was nice. I was keeping this, I was thinking about 30 to 45 minutes. And this is good. Shredna really wants a hook. Go check out other videos for that today. But thanks for watching, and hopefully, it's like, man, we could have talked more. I'm going to make probably one or two other videos about the iPad version, showing a couple setups that might actually make sense for some of you. Because this version, I believe, has a lot of what the direction of the Mac version is going to be taking in the future. And so, for better or worse, this is what we're looking at, I believe. This is the precursor to what's going to be happening. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll keep this one shorter today. I will catch you all on the next one. Have a really good weekend. Hope you have some nice weather.